So today we're going to talk about the problems of the modern gaming industry. This is something that's been bothering me for quite a while, and I have a lot of things to say. I don't feel like editing this video or anything. I just want to talk, and I have a lot of things to say. I actually jotted down some notes so I could kind of stay on course, but maybe I'll veer off course. Who knows where this video is going to go, because there are so many fundamental problems with modern gaming. And yes, old man yells at the cloud, whatever, bro. I've been around since the rise of video games. I have seen this industry come to the point of where it is today, and there are problems. If you disagree with my problems or want to add some problems, feel free to comment in the comment section down below. Also, none of these are in sequential order except the last one. The last thing that we're going to talk about is arguably one of the biggest problems with the video game industry that nobody is talking about, and it's something that's very important. But everything up until that point, you could kind of slot it wherever you want as far as a problem is concerned. Number one. Not that this is number one on the list. This is the first thing we're going to talk about. Games are too big. These games are too big. And because of this, you get these elongated development times that are just ridiculous. You see a game and it's not coming. You say, oh, look at this game. This game looks so cool. I can't wait to play it. When does it come out? Oh, it comes out in 4 years. 4 years? Like, what are we doing here? How did games become so big? How are games not streamlined more with all of this technology that they have? Instead, everything is slower now. You know, you could really sort of pinpoint back to the last generation when you had a decent turnaround time for game development. You could say the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era, and I definitely wouldn't argue with you on that, but I want to go back one generation prior to that. I want to go back to the PS2, GameCube, Xbox generation and think about the amount of games that you constantly got. Think of how many games you got from mainline franchises that got sequels or spin-offs or all sorts of stuff. How many Grand Theft Auto games did you get? How many Metal Gear Solid games did you get? How many God of War games did you get? How many Gran Turismo games did you get? How many Final Fantasy games did you get? You were constantly getting games from these franchises, and it wasn't like a cheap cash grab on these games. You look at Grand Theft Auto 3 to San Andreas, huge leap. You look at Metal Gear Solid 2 to Metal Gear Solid 3, huge leap. And it's not just a leap in terms of visuals, it's a leap in terms of gameplay. It's a leap in terms of what you can do within these worlds that these developers have created and crafted. And now, everything takes so long, you're lucky to get one game from a popular franchise during a generation. How is game development slowed down so much with all of this new technology? As we saw in the past, when new technology would come along, game development would ramp up. You would get more games, and you did see this during the PS3 and Xbox 360 era, but somewhere along the way, we just decided to bloat these games so much. We bloated them so much with little intricacies and stuff like that, and now we're at the point of like, you know, you're not seeing any real sort of evolution of gameplay. You're not even really seeing an evolution of graphics. Yeah, you might get a little bit of a sharper image than you got on the PlayStation 4, but let's be realistic. There is no really substantial leap except for things like ray tracing. And I'm sorry, but ray tracing, most people don't care about it. Most people would rather have a baseline 1080, 60 frame per second game than have some game with the frame rate all over the place because you want to put in all this graphical crap and all these ray tracing effects. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that stuff. You also, with games being so big, the cost of these games is ridiculous. Once again, overinflated costs of games to the point of where if a game doesn't sell, 5 or 6 million copies right off the jump, it's a failure. These people are going to lose their jobs. And is it the fault of the people working on the game, or is it the fault of the studio heads for making these games so big and so bloated when they probably don't need to be? You probably don't need to put every little graphical bell and whistle within a game in order, because it's still not going to look that much different than something else that already exists. I don't understand how technology has advanced, but for some reason, game development time has gotten so much worse. And because of this, you have this heavy reliance on remasters to circumvent this. And let's get this out of the way. I don't have a problem necessarily with some remasters. When we're talking about remasters of games from prior generations, you know, the PlayStation 2, Xbox era and back, sure, you can remaster some of those games. Native HD wasn't available for a lot of those games. Some of those games had a bit of a clunky control scheme and stuff like that. You want to freshen those up, that's fine. When we are freshening up games from the previous generation that already work on the current generation hardware, there's a problem. Until Dawn did not need a remaster. It's a PlayStation 4 game that looked great and it was fun to play. Don't need, and it works on my PlayStation 5. Horizon Zero Dawn. It worked on the PlayStation 4. It was really designed for the PlayStation 4 Pro in mind. It came out. People sold over 30 million copies. It ran on the PlayStation 5. It was enhanced on the PlayStation 5. Why in the name of God are we remastering this game 7 years after it came out? There's no rhyme or reason to it. These are stopgaps because for some reason, game development has become so bloated. And of course, why aren't companies focusing on what's going to really work? Because they're too busy chasing trends. They see the Fortnite, they see the Apex, and they're like, we're going to be next. Whoever is running these companies and having that mentality, you're going to be the next Overwatch, you should be fired. You should be fired because all you have to do is look at the laundry list of games that have come and gone that have tried to emulate the success of other games and have completely failed. We're talking games that don't even last a year on the marketplace. Some of these lasting a few months because nobody's playing these games because there's an oversaturation of them. With these long development times, you've now created a sphere in which you can't ride the trend. You can't hop on the trend because it takes too damn long to get to it. And then by the time you get on the trend, it fails and everyone laughs at you. And instead of making something that would have appealed to people, you were too busy trying to hop on that trend and capitalize on that trend. And what did it cost you? Well, in the case of Concord, seems like almost $400 million. Now, to completely veer off course here, we'll steer back at some point in time. Sports games. What the hell happened to sports games? I am someone who likes sports games, okay? I like sports. I like basketball is my favorite. Football is cool. Baseball, I could take it or leave it. But what the hell happened with this? I'm thinking back previous generations. Think of how many companies made football and basketball games. Sony made one. Xbox made one. Nintendo made one. EA made one. 2K made one. Konami made one. Other companies made one. There was so much competition in the sports sphere. And now there's one basketball game. There's one football game. And I get it. Madden is because of a licensing issue. Even though NFL 2K5 with modern rosters is leagues better than Madden 25. Go play it if you don't believe me. So that's a greed thing. But with basketball, there is no thing. Why is nobody else making a basketball game? Why is 2K the monopoly of basketball? Competition. This is why Madden had golden eras. This is why NBA 2K had golden eras, because of competition. Companies were competing for that spot. And so you had to bring your A game. You had to go back to the drawing board. You had to figure out how you were going to be a better game. But when there is no competition, you could just coast. What do you want to play a basketball game? You better buy NBA 2K. You want to play a football game? You better buy Madden, because you're not going to play anything else otherwise. And what the hell is with these my factions, my player things that just infest these sports games, infest these wrestling games? All right? I don't want to do my player and give you money. My player used to be, you played well on the basketball court with your player and you would earn enough virtual currency to upgrade them appropriately. But then we had this online focus. We wanted to create this massive hub city in NBA 2K. Once again, going back to the bloating aspect, because you can nickel and dime people, because it's like, oh, you could play for hours and hours and hours and maybe increase your stats a little bit. Or you could buy some stats. You could buy some stats and then you'll be able to play. I don't play that. I don't play that mode. I play a basketball game to play as the athletes out on the court. I want to play as Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride, OG Anunoby, Tyler Kolek, Ariel Huck-Porty. These are the people I want to play as. I don't want to play as myself. I'm a 5'10" white guy. Yeah, I got a decent little shot, but I'm not out there running people. My factions, the card stuff. Give us money. Open these digital card packs for money and play our game. All it is predatory. They are just trying to take every bit of money they can get from you because their games are too big and their games are too bloated. So they got to make up money somewhere. It's ridiculous. It's predatory and it's ridiculous. Single player, mandatory online. I have to be online to play this single player game. Are you out of your damn mind? Have you lost all common sense? Have you lost all sensibility? I understand. Most people that are playing a single player game at their house are probably connected to online. But let's say something happens. Let's say they decide to bring their system over to someone's house who doesn't have great online service. Let's say that their power goes out. Let's say that their internet goes out. You can't play this game. And of course, that extends to servers as well. Because now you're relying on a server. I remember when Gran Turismo 7 came out. It was relying on a server. You have to sign in to play the single player portion. And because the server was having issues, you literally could not play the game. And people just accept this. No, it's just modern gaming. Question these things. Why the hell I'm playing on an Xbox. I'm playing on a PlayStation. I'm playing on Nintendo Switch. All three of these systems, all three of these have their own online servers and their own online login. Got to sign into PSN. Got to sign into Xbox Live. Got to sign in to Nintendo Switch Online. Why do I need to sign into Ubisoft after this, or Capcom, or 2K, or Rockstar, or all these other online sign-in clients after I'm already online? Why is this not tied to my account? Why do you need my information? Why do you want to send me emails? I don't care. I'm here to play your game. I do not want to sign in because God forbid that if it was tied to your account, I wouldn't care as much. But having to remember every login, every email, every password for all these different online things, I just want to play the fucking game. Let me play the game. Why do I need to sign into your online thing? I'm already online on my console. What the hell's the point of a disc? What's the point of a disc? You got to install the game anyways. You buy a new game, an hour and a half install. There you go. Enjoy. What's the point? What is the point of the disc? Why do I have to install everything? If this is a problem, come up with a new physical medium. Why am I paying the same price for a digital game than I am a physical game? I don't want your crappy digital art book or your digital soundtrack that nobody's going to use. Charge me $5, $10 less because you don't have to manufacture that disc that has to install things anyways. You don't have to print cover art. You don't have to have a case for the physical game. There is no rhyme or reason for that. But you still charge the same amount in the digital marketplace. Jesus Christ, that's one of the biggest problems in the world. People drive me nuts. They're like, oh, well, PC has had digital marketplace forever. It'll work on consoles. Steam is a platform that does not have any vested interest in the price of these games aside from their own games. You don't think Sony is going to sit there if we get to this all digital age and their first party games are going to hardly go on sale digitally? Because there's no way else to buy the game. You don't think that's going to happen? You think they're going to be gracious with these discount prices? You're a fool, Pliskin. You're a fool. All these companies are going to nickel and dime you with their digital games because they've already preconditioned you to spend the same amount of money for a digital game that you do a physical game. Why does hardware never go down in price anymore? Why is that such a foreign concept? Systems. Here's a fun one, kids. Systems like a year or two after they came out, there would be a price drop. Why? Because the things being used to make the system were then cheaper to make the system. They were more readily available. So they passed on that savings to you. So you paid less for your system. Competition. We want people to buy our system. We got to cut down the price a little bit so our profits aren't as good. Fine. Now we're in the era where systems seem to either stay the same or go up. The Nintendo Switch, the baseline Nintendo Switch, is 7 years old, almost 8 years old. It's never gone down in price. Yes, there's been Black Friday bundles where you get a digital copy of a game. Wow, what great savings. But it's never gone down in price. Consoles go up in price. Why? You know why? Because of company greed. They need to nickel and dime because they have things like failures. They have these overinflated budgets for these games. So they need to figure out a way to get money from you, no matter what it is. And then they tell you, we know more than you do. We know more of what you want than you know what you want. And if you disagree with that, you are a problem. You are a bad consumer. You are an an ism, whatever the buzzword is, because you're not supporting the game. You're not supporting companies. Look at me, companies. You exist because of me. All right. The only reason you exist is to please people like me, is to please your consumer base. You are an entertainment company. You are not a necessary thing in society. Entertainment companies can come and go. It's all based on making things that your consumer fan base wants. And to sit there and argue with your consumer fan base over and over again and make questionable changes to things, we're not even going down that rabbit hole in this video, because you probably thought that was going to be the last thing that we're going to talk about, because we are getting into the last thing, and you thought that this was going to parlay into that. But it's not, because I'm not even going to factor in a lot of these people that work at these companies, the shady things going on, the journalists that prop these companies up. I'm not even going to get into that, because while it is a problem, it's something that I don't think it's the biggest problem. I really don't. And now we're getting into what is the biggest problem. And I have 4 letters for you. The ESRB. The ESRB was, of course, created during the whole Mortal Kombat Night Trap era of video games in the early 90s, because what about the children? Video games are for children, because that was the mantra at the time. It wasn't like it was now. So the ESRB was created to essentially rate games on a level of appropriation, much like you saw with the film industry, with like PG, rated R, stuff like that. And when you look at the ESRB in 2024, they control way too much shit. Let me explain here. So the ESRB decides based on what a company sends them, something that they think might be inappropriate, something that's maybe overly violent, this, that, or the other. A company sends in the most questionable things of a game to the ESRB, and the ESRB decides what to rate that game. And for the most part, it seems to work okay-ish. But we have this problem where they can pretty much kill a game as far as a creative standpoint is right at its doorstep. If they see something that they deem to be too violent, too sexual, too controversial, they could give a game an adult-only rating. And as we know, adult-only rating games never come out. For some reason, there's a difference between M-rated games, which is 17 and up, and adult-rated games, when in actuality, they should be one and the same. They're both saying that you need to be an adult, or at least 17 and up, which can drive a car and enlist in a war and just wait a couple of months and then go fight for their lives. But you can't enjoy this video game because you're not quite mature enough. You're not quite old enough. And the problem is, when you look at what was deemed acceptable 20 years ago versus what it would be deemed acceptable today, it is a night and day difference. We talked about this on the latest episode of the Spawncast, which, depending on when you're watching this, it might not be up yet, but it'll be up tonight, Saturday night, maybe Saturday afternoon. I don't know when John's putting it up over on the channel, but the ESRB is the biggest enemy of the gamers, because think about it like this. You're going to sit there and tell me that Rockstar hasn't thought about remastering Manhunt? You know, a game that was controversial, but a game that sold pretty well, sold well enough to get a sequel. You're going to tell me that Rockstar doesn't want to remake that game? Of course they do. But what happens in Manhunt in 2020, what did that come out? 2023? 2024? Or 2003. Jesus, I can't even talk. 2003, 2004, whenever it came out. It came early, mid-2000s. What was deemed mature rated then would not be deemed mature rated now. It would get an adults only rating because the graphics got better. It looks more realistic. There's rumors that God of War, the original God of War games, are going to get a remaster and brought out, like the original trilogy and the PSP games, onto modern consoles. You think the ESRB is going to let that sex mini game fly, even though it doesn't really show anything? No, they're not. Even though they let it fly in the past, because for some reason, because graphics have gotten better and more realistic, that means you have to be more controlled with what's deemed acceptable in video games. Yet, I can go watch a movie and see boobs and sex and vagine and peen. No problem. No problem whatsoever. You want to cut someone's head off and drink their blood down your throat in a horror movie or something? No problem. But the video game industry is still for children, even though you have a rating system much like you have with movies. And because of this, because of the constant, what the ESRB views as a value system, because it's not the same people that have always worked there. They're constantly bringing in new people. These are the people that are controlling content in your video games, deeming what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And they force video game companies to have to choose to what they want to cut out or what they want to change if they want at least an M rating. Because you can't go near that adult rating, because that's forbidden land. The God, modern gaming. There's problems with it, man. And these are just a handful. This is just a handful of problems. I'm sure the comments will be ridden with more problems of the modern gaming industry. And I want you guys to do that. I want you guys to have a discussion. Because, this is an important topic, man. This shapes what video games are going to be in the next few years, and I don't know how good the future really looks. The future is forsaken, as Forsaken on the N64 said. Let me know what you think of this in the comment section down below. This video ended up going longer than I thought it was, but honestly, it probably could have gone longer. I have a lot more things to say, but I want to keep this somewhat concise. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. You're a trooper. Hit subscribe if you're new. I have to sneeze. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.